Johnson, I'm just thinking as we refer to Cal Ripken that I'd say you're the rookie with the most Cal Ripken-like record on this committee, which I appreciate. You've really been very steadfast in your contributions here.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you and Senator Collins for holding these hearings. For somebody new, these are extremely helpful. I mean, I'm learning a lot. So, thank you, and I'd also like to thank the witnesses for your time, your testimony, and also for all of your service to the country. As somebody new, I wasn't around here, you were. I'd like to ask each one of you, what was the primary rationale or reason for establishing the department? I want to go down the list. And if a previous answer is your answer, you can tell me the second one, but I also want you to acknowledge that that was the reason. And I'll start with you, Congresswoman Harman. And by the way, for the record, I want to say I smiled when you said that 90% of the work was done by the women on the Fab Force. So.
I appreciate that. I remember the time vividly. We were all here on 9/11, and I was then a very senior member on the House Intelligence Committee walking to the dome of the Capitol, which most people think was the target of the intended target of the fourth plane that went down in Pennsylvania. So it focuses the mind. We had no evacuation plan here. We unfortunately closed these buildings. Huge mistake, reopened them later in the day, but nonetheless it was terrifying, which is the point of a terror attack. At any rate, I felt, and I think I certainly know that Chairman Lieberman did, that our government organization was completely inadequate to the new set of threats, and we needed something different. We had missed clues, obviously. Two of the hijackers were living in plain sight in San Diego, and the FBI didn't talk to the FBI internally, and it, of course, didn't talk to the CIA, or we might have been able to find them and unravel the plot. So the goal was to somehow find a better way to put government functions together. As I mentioned in my testimony, many of us thought there was a simpler way to do this, but we embraced what President Bush proposed because we knew he would support that and we would get something done.
Okay. Admiral Allen.
Senator, the concept of a border security agency actually predates 9/11. There were discussions about trying to do something like this clear back in the Nixon administration regarding border control on the southwest border. So the concept itself is not novel. As a former commandant of the Coast Guard and somebody that has worked with these agencies for nearly 40 years before I retired, the relationships between the Coast Guard, FEMA, Immigration, and Customs have never been better. FEMA is a better organization because they're in a department with the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard is a better organization because they're in a department with FEMA, and I testified to that after Hurricane Katrina. I think, and I was also asked by Senator Lautenberg one time what was the best thing about leaving DOT because he was our chairman and moving into Homeland Security. At the time I said we got our appropriations on time. I'm not sure anybody can say that anymore. There was an all-out bureaucratic war between the Coast Guard and Customs in the mid-1980s over who would do air interdiction and maritime interdiction in this country. It was interscene warfare, and it was ugly. That does not happen anymore, and while there are overlaps and things to talk about how we can coordinate better and create unity of effort, some of the bureaucratic struggles that I saw throughout my career have gone away.
That was how many agencies? About 5 that you're talking about, that you were originally thinking about?
The original border security, that's been a discussion that's gone on for years. Sometimes it was just border focused.
But of the 22, how many of those?
I think originally they would be talking about immigrations, customs, Coast Guard. The organizations actually have a physical presence on the air, land, or sea domains and borders. But it has been something that's been discussed for quite a while.
Okay. Mr. Skinner.
Yes, I agree with Admiral Allen. The whole concept of Homeland Security predates 9/11, actually. As a matter of fact, I think there was actually a bill that was introduced and got closeted for a couple years prior to 9/11. It was brought out and dusted off, and I think that started the ball rolling for the getting a bill that we now have through the Congress so fast. Quite frankly, I think the whole concept was to have unity of effort, to bring together the different functions within government so that they can work better together to not only protect or prevent another terrorist attack, but also to develop a resilience and an ability to respond and recover from a terrorist attack should one occur. So it brought together these different elements that would sit under one roof, one leadership, with one common mission. That is to prevent, protect, and respond, recover, and mitigate against not terrorist attack, but also natural disasters.
Here's my concern. My bias, having been part of a small company that got bought by a larger conglomerate and then demerged. I've gone through that merging process on a far smaller scale. I understand that, but I also understand that when you go into the larger organization, so much of your effort then is directed toward basically feeding the beast. Trying to do all these things we're trying to do with integration. And I guess that's my question. Have we created something that's simply too big to manage? I mean, we've got a department now that's 200,000 people. It's got $6.5 billion worth of overhead. And should we be taking a look at maybe splitting out some of those? Should we maybe demerge some of these into some different areas? Take a look at if it's, I guess I always thought it's kind of breaking down the silos, information sharing, maybe take that back to, the national intelligence level for that sharing. And is there a more intelligent way of potentially taking a look at this? Have we created, these agencies were large bureaucracies to start with. Now we made something even larger, and have we actually made it less effective?
Well, on the front end, I think we bit off too much, but we made a tactical political decision that going along with the President's proposal was the fastest, easiest way to get something to happen. There have been huge growing pains. It's been 10 years, and still some functions aren't done well. Yes, I would recommend narrowing some of the functions, but I would be against my own view, rearranging the deck chairs again, because I think that is a extremely painful exercise to any organization, and this one is finally, in many respects, becoming a cohesive organization. More leadership to integrate some functions that are still not integrated would be good. Sustained leadership in the next administration would be excellent. But I think it's come a long way, and it really has served the function, by and large, of protecting our country, along with oversight of Congress. If I had to pick an area to reorganize right this minute, it would be Congress. I think this committee should have a lot more jurisdiction than it does, and that's true in the House side, too.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I think it's hard to disaggregate the inelegant conditions under which the department was formed that I discussed earlier, and the issues you talked about management and the size and the span of control and so forth. We're going to have to get over the first part. It's been 10 years. The country expects the government, the department is going to start functioning better, and I think that's a mandate for the department. I think on the other hand, I think there's a leadership management imperative here that hasn't been exhausted yet, and I would support Representative Harmon's comments there. I think we have an opportunity as we move to a new administration or a continuity of the current administration to have a leadership management agenda that is focused on the department, that takes care of the basic X's and O's of blocking and tackling. And I think until we have done that, we haven't exhausted the potential for the department.
Senator, I'd like to add also, I agree wholeheartedly with Congresswoman Harmon. This is not a time to rearrange the deck chairs. And we have to, if you study the history of the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, you have to understand the environment in which it was created. And it was a very emotional environment. This country was very, very upset with the result, what happened in 9/11 and what happened in New York here at the Pentagon and also in Pennsylvania. This bill was pushed through very, very quickly at a historic pace, and we weren't given the opportunity to think it through so that we can prepare ourselves. We saw this at TSA when we stood that up, hiring all of the screeners in record time, and as a result, we had to go back and redo a lot of that. But yet, that environment in which we stood up created a lot of our problems. When we didn't think it all the way through, we did not, for example, I said earlier, we shortchanged the management support functions when we stood up. We brought in all the operations without the support, the management support to back these operations.
Okay, let me just close with an interesting article that I read in Newsweek where basically Secretary Gates was talking about when he came in. Secretary Rumsfeld said there were 17 layers between his command decision and being implementation in the military. Now it's 30. And that's not moving in the right direction in terms of efficiency, and that's my primary concern about the Department of Homeland
Security. Let me add, actually the department has reduced layers. Because when it was originally stood up, the department had the opportunity, the secretary had the opportunity, and the president, with the congressional approval, to reorganize, in which they did, and they've actually removed layers. Now, I think the layers that remain need to be empowered, particularly in the management support arena. The progress that we've made to date, I think, is substantial. I don't think the department does a very good job of marketing itself. It still has a long way to go. The biggest threat I think the department has for its success right now is the budget constraints, the ability to sustain what they've already started, and the ability to make the improvements they need to move forward and to address evolving threats.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Johnson. That was a really constructive exchange. Senator Kaka.